The Battle of Honkaniemi was fought between Finnish and Soviet forces on 26 February 1940. This battle was fought by tanks, the only time they were used in combat by Finnish forces in the Winter War. The commander of the Finnish Second Corps, General Harold Oquist, had attached the Jaeger Battalion 3 in the 4th Company of the Armoured Battalion to the 23rd Division. The 23rd was responsible for the area around Lake Näkijärvi, just to the southeast of Viipuri, the second largest town in Finland. Also, the 3rd Battalion of the 67th Infantry Regiment that was on loan to the 5th Division arrived as well, giving the reinforcement that the commander of the 23rd Division, Colonel Valdemar Oinonen, needed to launch an attack against the Soviets. At 10:15 p.m., the commander of the Jaeger Battalion 3, Captain I. Kunnas and Lieutenant O. Heinonen of the 4th Armoured Company received orders to attack. Plan. The original plan had involved 6 infantry battalions, 4 artillery battalions and the 4th Armoured Company. However, due to the haste to get the plan up and running, the planners missed important aspects of the battle, therefore reducing the overall number of units to 4 infantry battalions, 2 artillery battalions in the all-important 4th Tank Company. Assault. On the nights of February 25 and 26, members of the Jaeger Battalion were carried by truck to Heponokko, which was about 3 km away from a depot in Honkaniemi. They then skied to the start point at 4 am. The tank company arrived around 30 minutes later after a 50 km march. That journey, however, cost them more than they would have liked. Since the conditions of the weather and roads were equally bad, the tank company lost 5 of their 13 Vickers 6-ton tanks, mostly due to engine failure. Seeing this as a major blow to their offensive capabilities, Captain Kunnas split his remaining tanks between the 1st, 2nd and 3rd Jaeger companies. 6 tanks were to support the Jaegers while 2 were to help the 1st secure the left flank. It was decided that the attack would commence at 5 am, but communication with the artillery battalions failed, so it was decided that they would try again at 6:15 am. When communications with the artillery battalions were restored, the time had come to attack. However, another setback had occurred. During the preliminary artillery barrage, some of the shells landed at the start point, resulting in 30 Finns being killed or wounded. The attack had to be postponed by another hour. Beginning after the initial bombardment by 2 artillery battalions, the attack commenced. Nevertheless, the Finns had had another setback. Another 2 tanks had been lost to technical failure, thereby reducing the total Finnish tanks to only 6 for the entire battle. Even after all these setbacks, there were more to come. The 1st Jaeger Battalion had advanced some 200 meters before having to halt under heavy fire from the Red Army. The 1st Jaeger Company, which was covering the left flank, advanced towards the railroad only to be unable to cross it. The 2nd and 3rd Jaeger Companies, which were the main attack force, had advanced to 200 meters southwest of the railroad, but had to be stopped. Tank backup. The 4th Armoured Company had one of the worst days ever. One of its tanks got stuck in a ditch, the turret was damaged in the process and it had to retreat back to the starting point. The remaining 5 tanks were lost in a more honorable way, being targeted by T-26s, T-28s and 45mm anti-tank guns. The platoon commander's tank, LTV Mykolas, advanced the farthest, almost 500 meters, almost into the Soviet lines. Only 2 Finnish tanks were able to destroy other Soviet tanks. The tank of Corporal E. Sepala, which had kept on fighting after being immobilized, had taken out 2 Soviet tanks before the crew had to abandon their vehicle. The other tank was commanded by 2nd LT. J. Vernio, which had destroyed 1 tank before being damaged. Finnish retreat. Captain Kunnas received orders at 10 p.m. that he was to abort the attack and retreat. The Finns' first tank battle met with an unsuccessful end. The entire tank battle had been fought with inexperienced crews and almost no radio communication. In order to save money, the tanks had been bought from the UK without guns, optics and radios, and some even without the driver's seat. Due to the lack of vital equipment, communication between tanks was impossible, and the tanks had to act upon their own judgment. Aftermath. The battle caused the deaths of one NCO while injuring 2 officers and 2 NCOs. 3 privates were reported missing in action. Even though the Soviets had a huge advantage over the Finns in numbers and weapons, the Finnish troopers pressed home the attack. On February 27, 1940, the remaining 8 tanks of the 4th Tank Company were ordered to move to the Rautalampi area for anti-tank duties. According to Russian sources, during the day of the 26th of February, 6 Finnish tanks were destroyed in 2 separate engagements. No losses to their own tanks were recorded. The Journal of the 35th Armoured Brigade states, 2 Vickers tanks with infantry backup advanced to the right flank of the 245th Infantry Regiment. Both enemy tanks were destroyed in the following battle.